Shalom, I'm Rabbi Michael Panitz, the Rabbi of Temple Israel of Norfolk, Virginia, and I'm speaking to you from the pulpit of our congregation. At this time, I'd like to speak to you about the tragedy that's unfolding in the Ukraine. And my message is entitled, it's a quote from the book of Genesis chapter 4, verse 10. Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the soil. With the world in flames, it's hard to focus on one atrocity among many. But as a Jew, I cannot help it. Without ignoring the suffering in Kiev, in Kharkiv, in Kherson, and elsewhere in the bleeding country of Ukraine, my attention has been drawn to two of the targets targeted by Russia in its invasion. On the first day of the aggression, Russia bombed the city of Uman, the site of the grave of Rebbe Nachman of Bratslav, one of the giants of Hasidic Judaism. Uman is the single most frequented pilgrimage site for Hasidic Jews. Thousands of Bratslaver Hasidim make an annual visit to the grave of the founder of their sect. Then on March 1st, the Russians bombed the Holocaust Memorial at Babin Yar, Kiev. That place is sacred to memory for the saddest of reasons. The Nazis murdered tens of thousands of Jews there over the course of 2 days, and then buried many, many more in the mass grave. The soil of Babi Yar, as Babin Yar used to be known, is consecrated by the blood of myriads of martyrs. It is cold comfort to hear the Russian explanation that it was targeting a communications installation rather than the Holocaust Memorial itself. Why was there a communications installation there in the first place? Do we build communications installations on the grounds of the Gettysburg National Cemetery? The Soviets built that tower. It was one in a series of efforts on their part to cancel the site as a place of particular Jewish memory. The Soviets systematically dishonored the Jewishness of the victims. In their propaganda, they referred to the victims only as Soviet citizens, never as Jews, so that it would not spark any sympathy for the Jew. This was part of their state-sanctioned anti-Semitism. They also attempted to efface that place physically, building over the graves a sports complex and a park, as well as a television transmitter. It was an act of civil disobedience and of great courage when the Russian poet Yevgeny Yevtushenko published his poem Babi Yar in 1961 to protest the Soviet refusal to honor the victims of the Babi Yar massacre as Jews. Here are two selections from his poem, the beginning and a passage near the conclusion of the work. Of course, this is a translation from the original Russian. No monument stands over Babi Yar, a drop sheer as a crude gravestone. I am afraid. Today, I am as old in years as all the Jewish people. Now I seem to be a Jew. Here I plod through ancient Egypt. Here I perish, crucified on the cross, and to this day I bear the scars of nails. I seem to be Dreyfus. The Philistine is both informer and judge. I am behind bars, beset on every side, hounded, spat on, slandered. Squealing dainty ladies in flounced Brussels lace stick their parasols in my face. I seem to be then a young boy in Bialystok. Blood runs, spilling over the floors. The barroom rabble-rousers give off a stench of vodka and onion. A boot kicks me aside, helpless. In vain I plead with these pogrom bullies while they jeer and shout, "Beat the Yids! Save Russia!" Some grain marketer beats up my mother. Oh, my Russian people, I know you are international to the core, but those with unclean hands have often made a jingle of your purest name. I know the goodness of my land, how vile these anti-Semites. Without a qualm, they pompously call themselves the Union of the Russian people. And the second selection. The wild grasses rustle over Babi Yar. The trees look ominous, like judges. Here all things scream silently. And bearing my head, slowly, I feel myself turning gray. And I myself am one massive, soundless scream above the thousand buried here. I am each old man here shot dead. I am every child here shot dead. Nothing in me shall ever forget. The Russian government has justified its invasion as an effort to denazify Ukraine. This is clever propaganda, making use of a half-truth. There were plenty of Nazi collaborators in Ukraine during the time of the Nazi conquest, 1942 to 1943. They were spurred both by their hatred of the Russians who had conquered them in the previous century, and by their long and shameful history of anti-Semitism. That should not be whitewashed. But that does not characterize Ukraine in the past 3 decades. Ukraine still harbors anti-Semitic voices, but a large majority of Ukrainian citizens elected a Jew as their president in 2019. Ukraine, and not Russia, acknowledged the Jewishness of Babi Yar. Ukraine maintains good relations with the state of Israel. On the subject of Israel, Israel is in a particularly hard place in connection with this crisis. Israel is under constant threat from jihadists based in Syria. Russia is the patron of the Syrian dictator, and therefore Syria has extensive Russian air defenses. Israel needs to keep the cooperation of Russia when it seeks to defend against the terrorists attacking it from Syrian soil. And so Israel has tried to hew to a careful diplomatic line in the midst of this conflict. And yet, when the United Nations General Assembly voted on a resolution condemning the Russian aggression, Israel voted with the world and with the voice of conscience. The reason was articulated by Israel's foreign minister, Yair Lapid. It is a moral responsibility. At the very beginning of our people's memories, when saga rather than chronicle served as the vehicle for teaching our children about our earliest forefathers, we told the story of Cain and Abel. After the first murderer had spilled his brother's blood, God asks him, Aye hevel achicha, where is Abel your brother? Cain refuses to accept responsibility. Hashomer achi anochi, am I my brother's keeper? At that point, God levels the perennial accusation. Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the soil. Abel's blood is crying from the soil. The blood of the Jews of Uman, the Jews killed in pogroms in Ukraine and Belarus, the Jews machine-gunned at Babi Yar and across the Pale of Settlement, cries from the soil. The blood of the civilians shelled and rocketed across Ukraine cries from the soil. The blood of soldiers and civilians shed in defense of their country, attacked by a cruel and imperialistic neighbor seeking to regain its status as a feared empire, cries from the soil. Hear the cry of the blood of the victims. Stand with the victims, not with the oppressors. May their country regain its integrity and continue its progress on its still unfinished ascent to civilization. Amen.